It's been a busy month with the new M3 MacBook Air, and I think it's safe to say that this is the most pro MacBook Air laptop Apple has ever made. But that doesn't mean you should buy it. It's a lot more complicated than that. And to understand why this is, we have to analyze the design, performance, battery life, and value. Also, at the end of the video, you will hear my personal, honest recommendations on how to spend your money for each kind of personal situation. But first, let's understand how Apple approached design. Approach in this context is a funny word, since Apple didn't actually change anything from the previous M2 MacBook Air design. And after a month of using this computer, I'm still happy they didn't. It's the thinnest computer I've ever used, and with that comes a lot of advantages that I've had to come to change my mind about. For example, I made a whole video about how much I love my 16-inch MacBook Pro because of how big it is. And that still holds true to an extent, but I've recently found it hard to make space for a laptop of that size while commuting, whereas the 13-inch MacBook Air was way more viable as an option in these scenarios. You could argue that the 14-inch MacBook Pro would be a happy medium in this context, but if you ever lay your hands on this MacBook Air, you know it's not the same. It's not as thin, it's not as light, it's not quite as portable and sleek. However, something that my specific MacBook Air hasn't been doing a good job of is with fingerprints. I've now had a whole month to plaster my hands on this, and I think I need to take back what I said about the midnight color being a viable color option for people. It's still too fingerprinty for my taste, even with the new anodized coating that Apple has added here. So unless you want to keep cleaning your device 24/7, or if you just don't care about fingerprints in general, I would avoid this color, unfortunately, which kind of sucks because I actually love the midnight color as it is. Other aspects of the design include the display, keyboard, and trackpad. All of them remain unchanged. The display is great, it's sharp, it's vibrant, it's color accurate. Nobody is going to be disappointed with how it looks. However, when it comes to multitasking, after over a month of using the 13-inch size, I can conclusively say that it's a little too crammed for that kind of work personally. I opt to work with a single window at a time on this computer, as any smaller and I feel like I'm losing out on significant displayable information on the screen. Luckily, Apple does sell a 15-inch M3 MacBook Air, and that actually 100% solves the problem I just stated. So if you know you want to be multitasking a lot on the computer, I would push you to think about the 15-inch size. When it comes to using the keyboard and trackpad for extended periods of time, I didn't experience any significant discomfort with the smaller 13-inch size. The keyboard is actually quite nice to type on. I will say though, if you are used to a bigger canvas for your hands to rest on, you will feel a little crammed at first on the 13-inch model, and you're gonna have to go through a small adjustment period to get used to it. Overall, when it comes to design, not much has changed, and that's a good thing if you got the formula right the first time. The big change though, the one that closes the gap on what makes this computer feel so pro to the point it has people questioning if they even need a MacBook Pro anymore, is the performance. But before we dive into the juicy stuff, let's thank the partner for today's video, Proto Arc. I had the pleasure to test out their new ergonomic keyboard and mouse combo, and it impressed me far beyond what I had expected. Starting with the keyboard, it's a full-size curved split design to allow you to type in a more natural posture. It combines that with these leather cushioned palm rests to provide more comfort to your hands, with the ability to tilt the keyboard in 3 different ways to ensure you're comfortable typing while seated or standing. The keys feel great and responsive to type, as they are low profile and are also scooped to match the shape of your fingertips. And even more impressive though is their ergonomic mouse. It gave my Logitech MX3 mouse a run for its money. It shares that same iconic ergonomic design that I found to be the most comfortable for a mouse. It's really silent too. You can barely hear the mouse clicking, which is awesome. It has a quick 3-level DPI adjustable setting on the mouse where you can quickly adjust how fast and responsive this mouse is. It also combines quick access buttons to things like forward and back to easily navigate web pages, and both products are rechargeable via USB-C and can be set up with up to 3 devices that you can switch between seamlessly via Bluetooth and the included 2.4 GHz dongle. So if you're looking for enhanced comfort and productivity for your desk setup without breaking the bank, I wouldn't pass up on Proto Arc's new ergonomic mouse and keyboard combo, which I'll leave a link in the description down below for you to purchase today. Thank you, Proto Arc, for partnering with me on today's video. Okay, so how exactly is the new MacBook Air having people question if they even need a Pro computer from Apple? It has to do with the new M3 chip, which in my opinion has really closed the gap in terms of performance for a lot of workflows. The specific model I have includes an M3 chip with an 8-core CPU, 10-core GPU with 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of SSD with an enhanced 16-core neural engine. After a month of using this, I struggle to feel the difference at times on everyday tasks between my M3 Max MacBook Pro and this tiny M3 machine. What's even cooler is that because this chip has upgrades in the GPU department and is more efficient than M2 this time around, more complex workflows can take advantage of this, making it almost limitless on what you can try on a MacBook Air. I want to preface, it doesn't mean you can do everything really fast on this computer. That's not true. That's why MacBook Pros exist, for those workflows that demand the most speed and efficiency. Those have a real fan and thermal management system in those computers to allow for sustained long-term performance without any slowdowns. But if you're okay to wait for things to load, if you're okay with some heat being generated while you're doing heavy tasks, and you don't need the fastest computer alive today, M3 MacBook Air performance over the last 30 days has been very impressive in my books. I can say confidently that I can edit and create videos on this machine, I can make use of demanding AI tools, photo editing, and get by with just this if I really had to. Some pro things that are missing, however, is greater access to more ports in this computer, which obviously is limited by the fact that Apple is trying to make this as thin as possible. You only get 2 Thunderbolt ports, MagSafe, and a headphone jack here, and for any creatives, not having an SD card slot is going to suck, and you will need to carry around some kind of USB hub, which will limit the portability factor of the computer. Even people who don't have newer monitors that make use of USB-C and instead use HDMI, you'll still need some kind of hub to get that monitor to talk to the MacBook Air, as it doesn't have an HDMI port. Outside of this port situation though, what Apple is doing with this computer and the M3 chip is special. Its performance is opening the floodgates for people to try more things on like a non-pro computer than ever before. However though, all of this performance and design prowess would be useless without Apple executing on the next crucial ingredient, battery life. It's really stupid, honestly, how long the MacBook Air can last these days on a single charge. If you aren't doing anything crazy or heavy on this computer, you can make this last at least 2 days easily. 3 days is possible if you really want to manage what you're doing, which is impressive for a computer as thin as this with the performance as high as here. If you're doing more demanding workflows on this computer, you can definitely still kill this computer in 1 day, no question, but it's not gonna die in like 1 hour or 2 hours. You can easily get up to like 6 hours of continuous demanding work, which is plenty of time before you would need to find an outlet to charge. And with that, we are left with the final piece of understanding why this laptop is so great and why you still may not need to buy this. And that has to do with its value, which will be broken down into 2 parts discussing financial considerations and my recommendations. So a common question a lot of people want to understand is the true value of the M3 MacBook Air at $1,099, as we don't live in a vacuum. You can still buy the M2 MacBook Air with the same design for $100 cheaper at $1,000. You cannot buy, however, the M1 MacBook Air directly from Apple anymore, but if you do some digging like I did, I found one as cheap as $700 on Best Buy for a computer that many people deemed to be revolutionary and still fully capable in 2024 and beyond, in my opinion. There's truly something for everyone at every price point from Apple, which is a good thing, but at the end of the day, that also makes you as a buyer feel really paralyzed because there's just so much choice and now you're confused on what to get. I'm gonna make it easy for you though. For everyone who is budget conscious and all you want is a reliable computer that works, there's literally no better option than the M1 MacBook Air, which you can buy used or brand new for so much cheaper, and you're not gonna regret it. The price to value ratio on this computer is just like, it's through the roof. Admittedly, it's old looking, like it's not gonna turn any heads these days. The design is not for everybody, so if you do have a bigger budget and you want the new redesign, do you go with M2 or M3? For $100 more, I personally feel it's worth every penny to go M3. You're getting a lot here over the M2 that isn't immediately apparent, but when you use these computers daily like I do, you notice things, and I've noticed since day one how much snappier and fluid M3 feels over M2. And that's not to say that M2 is bad. Like, if you can't afford the extra $100, you're going to still like the M2 MacBook Air. But if you can spare $100 or even wait to save up those $100, you're gonna get a lot more performance that will make this computer feel more fluid than that previous generation. For everybody else, the real pros, the people exploring if they can ditch their heavier MacBook Pros for a lightweight MacBook Air, I have some disappointing news. At least for me, while I could try to daily this machine, and I actually have, I'm still sacrificing on sustained performance. I'm still sacrificing on doing heavy workloads at a reasonable pace and all the other perks that make up a Pro MacBook. I actually made a video about how much I love my M3 Max MacBook Pro, and you don't want to miss it, so click right here to watch it now.